Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Players NIL and my Influencer Insider podcast. Today we have a special guest, Sabrina Oostburg. Sabrina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Sabrina, I'm excited to hear your story because as I just mentioned to you, part of the mission of the Players NIL is to make NIL relatable and attainable for everyone. And so we think your story is going to be of interest because you're not a football player at Alabama. You're not a basketball player at Iowa or Kentucky. And so in a non-revenue sport in a mid-major size school, you are a true NIL student athlete. So we want to talk about that. But first, just to kind of make you relatable to everyone, tell us a little bit about your childhood, your relationship with sports. How did you get started? Who were the influencers in your life that got you kind of where you are today athletically?
Yeah, so thank you so much again for just having me on the podcast. And I think that's a great point that you make that I am in a non-revenue generating sport because it really just shows you how NIL can be for everyone. I originally grew up in San Diego, California, where my first ever sport I did was long distance running. My mom was a marathon runner. I did that up into high school. When I was a freshman in high school, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I actually want to go to college for long distance running. COVID happened my sophomore year. And when that hit, I was like, okay, what can I do next? I actually saw a documentary on the CrossFit Reebok games. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do CrossFit. It's one of those films that just inspires you to work out. So I was like, yeah, that's my next goal. So I did CrossFit. And then the day after I started CrossFit, I decided that, you know what, to become better at CrossFit, I'm going to start doing Olympic weightlifting on the side to improve my sport. And this comes into play into how I got into my college sports later, as you'll find out. From there, I was doing CrossFit Olympic weightlifting for a bit. And then my mom saw a YouTube video titled Top 10 Reasons Why to Move to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So she liked all 10 reasons so much, we sold our house within a week, drove across the U.S.,
Wow.
Now we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's the end of towards the end of COVID 2021, and which is we had some leeway there. And then now I'm a junior, halfway through my junior year of high school. I want to make new friends, so I joined my high school track team. At my high school track team, I told my coach, I'm like, hey, I'm a long distance runner. He said, no, you're not. You're going to be a thrower. And at the time, I'm like, what do you mean, coach? And I'm a runner. That's all I've ever done. But then I didn't realize that with all the strength training I've been doing that I wasn't built the same way as a runner anymore. And so after a humbling 3-mile run with the cross country team, I decided, you know what, I'm going to retire from long distance running. This is no longer for me. And the next day I picked up throwing. 2 months later, I became top 6 in the state of Tennessee for shot put. And from my performance there, and through my social media accounts I had at the time, I was spotted out by Austin Peay State University, a Division I school in Clarksville, Tennessee, an hour up north from Nashville. And I was like, you know what? That sounds pretty cool to be a D1 athlete. It wasn't something I was exactly striving for, but I decided to go to Austin Peay for a year and do track and field there. And then my coach quit after my first year there. And so I had to search for a new school, and Belmont University reached out. And then that's where I am today. I'm going to enter my junior year of college this fall.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. It's a great story, by the way.
Quite a bit.
And I love the adventurous mindset of your mom. Let's go to Chattanooga, Tennessee from San Diego, California. It's quite a change. So I understand a little bit about track and field. I was a discus thrower in high school. Okay, I wasn't very good, but I had a very good coach, and we had a lot of really good discus athletes where I grew up. I'm not sure if there's, a sport that requires more mental discipline than long distance running, because it's, maybe swimming, these solitude sports, right? These mindset, you have to do that. Weight training is similar, right? How did you use the mentality and the discipline from running and turn it into strength training and Olympic lifting, which eventually, I'm guessing, contributed to your success as a thrower?
I would say I actually developed very different mindsets from running into weightlifting. I think where I really developed this athletic mindset was truly from CrossFit, because CrossFit's one of those sports where there's nothing really like it. It's its own thing. And through having these long, grueling workouts where it's this completely new style working out for me, I had to learn how to be determined, just disciplined, and keep going. I remember this one specific workout. We had an AMRAP workout, which stands for as many reps or rounds as possible. So we're doing round after round. We had a quick break in between. And I remember in between the breaks, I would just be huffing and puffing on the ground, just flopping around like a fish. And I remember my coach said to me, she said, your posture matters. If you're just acting like you're out of breath, you're going to be out of breath. But if you stand up and try and control your breathing, you're going to have more lung capacity and you're going to be able to breathe better, which will help you for the next round for you to be able to do better. And I really felt that that line helped me not just improve in my workouts, but in life, of where I realized, okay, your posture really matters. So I developed this athletic mindset through CrossFit, and that mindset then carried over to track and field. And how that's different is because when you're throwing, you're not exactly doing it all the time. You have this long break in between after you throw to your next throw, where you could think of a million different things. If your throw went really well, that's awesome. You just think about that. But if you had a really bad throw and you just threw out of the ring and it does not count, you now have a good 5 to 7 minutes to re-ponder about that as everyone else is throwing before you have another chance to go again. So it is different in that aspect.
I get it. The second question on that story is, and you kind of glazed over quickly, but it's actually what I really want to talk about is, how did you use social media to create a brand that attracted colleges?
Wow. I would say that I was not directly trying to do that. My social media account actually came from my love of fitness. When I was a junior in high school, I was inspired by my friend Ellie, who made a fitness account. And a couple days later, I made one because I thought it was really cool that she made one. And at first, it was to just really showcase our fitness journey. I wanted to show what it was like to be a quadruple sport athlete in high school. Not only was I doing CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting while I was in high school, I was also doing track and field and Spartan racing. So I had quite a couple sports I was doing at the same time. I just really love working out, and I wanted to showcase what this journey was like. And so through showcasing my sports, when colleges saw that, they thought that was really interesting. And so I was able to grow my platform through at first showing my journey to then inspiring other people to work out, to showing what it's like going from just doing all these different sports that are very unique into now being a D1 athlete and really showing people, okay, this is what it's like to go from A to point B.
Yeah, so storytelling is really important, right? And one of the things that we preach is making yourself authentic. And I'm guessing from the story that the authenticity of your journey and the sharing and being vulnerable to that, to the highs and the lows, and there's always critics. It was a little bit of a challenge. Were there any negative experiences while you're doing this? Are there any pitfalls that you would say to young women in particular to be careful of, stay away from?
I wouldn't say necessarily stay away from, but to be aware of. As a female posting about fitness, part of that comes with like body image. And I got a lot of pushback on it. Even to today, I'll have people comment about my body where they're like, muscles just don't look right on girls. And I know, especially on my platform, I try to push people to know that, like, especially as a Latina athlete, that it is normal and it's okay to work out. It's not going to make you bulky. That does not look wrong. But I still get a lot of comments from both sides of it, men and women, that just say very negative things. And so it is something to be aware of, that people are going to, I think, just comment in general, because you're going to have both sides where people like your content or they don't when it comes to posting on social media. But for me specifically, when I posted about that specific topic of fitness, I got a lot of negative comments about that.
Today, what platforms are you on and how many followers do you have?
I'm on every single platform that you could think of except for Twitter, or as people say today, X. I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, Threads. I'm on all of those platforms. I would say across all my platforms, I have 143K followers.
143,000. And you started in high school
Yes.
and you started as a fitness mindset. Today, what do you talk about besides fitness? What else attracts people to your stories?
I showcase a lot of different things other than fitness. I call them my 3 pillars. So fitness, and that comes into the gym of what it's like to be a D1 athlete. And I also showcase my lifestyle outside of that. I like to tell people I'm an entrepreneur. So showcasing that side of it and my travel. I've been going to all these different places so far in the summer. And I try to also show different parts of series. This in a couple more days, this Friday, I'm actually going to Paris, France for the Olympics. And so I'm doing a whole series of what it's like to be a D1 athlete that's working at the Olympics. And so showcasing these different series. But something I really value on my platform is showing relatability, making content that people relate to. In my bio on my fitness account, it says you're relatable D1 athlete, because I don't want it to be this title that just seems that there's this disconnect where it's like, oh, I'm better than you. No, I want people to be able to understand that, yes, that we have this title, but we still can connect to you. So I make a lot of relatable athlete content as well.
Love it. The word relatable is really critical. If someone comes up to you and asks you this question, how would you answer it? What does NIL mean to you?
NIL means opportunity. And I mean that in the sense that I've had opportunities I otherwise would not have been able to have. I've had the opportunity of doing NIL, pre-NIL in high school, because I got sponsored for Olympic weightlifting, which is not an NCAA regulated event. And so I had experience with that before I went to college and realized, oh, it's the same thing, just a different sport. And so I had experience in that. That was really cool. But I've been able to work with brands I never thought I would be working with now, like Sports Illustrated, Meta, CVS, First Form, all these dream brands I've always thought of, which is really cool. But something that people don't talk about is the fact that opportunities and a sense of career, because you're a D1 athlete or even just a college athlete in general, you do not have time for internships, for jobs. You already have 2 jobs, which is being a student and being an athlete. And so, especially for someone like me who does my own deals and does all this outreach, does the networking, connecting with people, it's like you have all this experience that you're making for yourself. So now I have experience negotiating, or what it's like to brand outreach, how to pitch yourself, all these valuable components that I otherwise would not know if I did not pursue NIL.
Great answer. I love it. And I love the authenticity part and the opportunity part. And it's what we preach, real, as in realistic NIL for everyone. That's why I wrote my book called NIL for All, because we want to make it relatable and attainable. Let's talk about your college experience now. So you're obviously a thought leader in the space. You have tremendous success on social media platforms. So it's very public. People know who you are. They know what you're doing. How have you managed, or have you had to manage, relationships with teammates and coaches?
In what aspect? Doing social media?
Are there people, are there negative aspects? Do they view it as a distraction? Is your coach upset because you're not as focused on sports as he or she thinks you should be? Are your teammates jealous? Have you run into any of those conversations?
Yeah, I would say for me, right now I'm in a very positive community at my current school that I've not had any negatives to that, which I'm very grateful for. My whole team is very supportive of it, especially with my coach too, which is really cool. I do get made fun of a little bit, and they know me as a social media person. And so I'm like, oh, she's making her video, or you need to talk to a social media person, go talk to Sabrina. They know me, and that's what I do. But I don't get a lot of negatives where I'm being punished for it in a sense. And so I'm really grateful for that. But it's just cool to know that I have a team that respects, and sometimes they'll want to be in a video. I'll share with them like, oh, are you interested in it? They're like, no, I don't have time for NIL. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's not something I push on them or they push on me.
Getting to the end of the conversation here, I want to get some sound bites. Top tips for young student athletes that want to take advantage of NIL. What should they do?
I'll sum it up in one word: ask. the number one thing that I see people struggle with is lack of knowledge. And I found lots of the knowledge I know just through asking people who are in the space. So I asked other athletes that have a deal with a certain company, how'd you do that? Oh, I asked this one guy, Connor Prince. I'm really good friends with him now. He has now over 700K on Snap. I asked him when he had 500K on Snap, how'd you do that? Oh, I posted 40 to 60 times a day on Snap, and then I grew that every day. And so I said, okay, that's what I did, posted 40, 60 times a day on Snapchat, and it grew me to now 66K. And so just through asking people, I think we're in a space right now where NIL so new that everyone wants to help each other. And so there's this misconception that, oh, I can't ask. Where did that come from? No, everyone's so open to helping each other out, especially me. And so I'm trying to help people as much as possible. So if you want to reach out to me through my DMs, please do so. I always try to help people. I know a lot of other athletes who are the same way.
Good. I love it. It's just really, really great. So 2 principles of our life in our business: how to use athletics to better your life, which you clearly have done, and how to use athletics to better the lives of the people around you. For those of us that once we retired, how can we give back, how we can contribute? And I know that you're doing that through helping and supporting and your social media, and you're a great example. Last question: 3 years from now, Sabrina Oostburg will be doing what?
Great question. So for number one, I would answer that through using athletics for growth and connection. I think when you tell other people, oh, I'm an athlete, and they smile and they look at you, their eyes bright, and they're like, oh, I was an athlete too. It's a connection factor. And so I use that in a sense of getting to know other people and relating to them through the sense of athletics. And there's no better bonding than doing sports with someone. And after that, you're all of a sudden best friends. And so I use that as connection, use it for growth. When I meet people, I learn that they're an athlete, automatic connection point. For the second question, I just say yes. And I laugh at that because where will Sabrina Oostburg be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? I'm not quite sure where. There's a lot in my mind, lots of great ideas to come, but I will say stay tuned for that. I'm working on a couple of projects right now. I'm currently working on a personal business or similar to what you're doing. I work with high school student athletes and help them with their NIL. And so teaching them everything that I wish I knew when I was a high school athlete, because that's part of why I was recruited in the first place, because my coach saw that, hey, you have a social media platform. I was on any NCAA website. Not at all. It was because of how I performed at state and the fact that they saw my social medias, which is why I got recruited. And so I want to help other people with my journey. As an entrepreneur at heart, I'm doing 5 different things at once, and I'm doing them all myself. And so along with that, I'm also 2 more things I'm working on is my own children's book to inspire younger girls that strength is not just physical, it's also mental. Along with that, I'm also working on a podcast called Tenacity with Sabrina Oostburg. This is where we focus on other people's stories where you know all the accomplishments people have done, but what was the main challenge that has shaped their mindset to where they are today? So those are just a couple tidbits of what's going to be happening as coming up. As I mentioned before, I'm going to the Olympics this weekend and many things to tune up for.
Well, it's inspiring. I feel like I'm going to go out and run a couple miles right now and get ready to crush it this afternoon at work, but it's a great story. And I really want to say thank you for sharing it. And you are an inspiration to young people, boys and girls, because your story is it's generic, right? Anyone can do it. Not everyone is comfortable on social media. Not everyone is going to be as good in camera as you are, but not everyone needs to achieve the things that you've done to make it successful for them. And so I think your humbleness is to be applauded. And I say congratulations, and I can't wait to follow your journey. And I want to say thank you for sharing your story on this podcast.
Thank you again so much for having me on there. I appreciate it.
Okay. And good luck at the Olympics. We'll look for those posts.
Appreciate it. Will do.
Okay.